Welcome to another edition of the podcast known as Blending the Family. I am your host, Tommy Maloney. Thank you for coming by, listening, cranking up the volume. Maybe you're driving cross country, maybe you're walking the dog, maybe you're even walking your pet llama. I don't know. Can you hear the noise? I don't know if you can hear it or not. Coming to you from the home office in northern Colorado, where I'm doing laundry. Had to get caught up on laundry, so if you hear I don't know if you can hear it. I can hear the washing machine going, and you're probably thinking, Tommy, that's unprofessional. Well, you've come to the right place. How are you doing? You doing good? How's your June been? I feel great, by the way. Thanks for asking. Again, coming to you from the home office where, I don't know if you follow me on Instagram, Blending Family. Blending Family, you can also find that on Twitter. And what the heck? Hey, go buy my book, the pre-sale, at mydadsadvicebook.com, mydadsadvicebook.com. The new book called My Dad's Advice at 5:04 a.m. Anyway, I'm excited because my home office is really feeling like a home office. A couple weeks ago, my wife Ann and I looked at our budget. We had enough in the savings to go and not only get her a new chair and foot thingy. I don't know what you call it. I know it's not an ottoman. It's like this round, squishy thing, footrest thingy. Anyway, I have bookshelves. I have my books on bookshelf. I have pictures. I have knickknacks. Knickknacks. I don't know if anybody uses that word anymore, knickknacks, but I'm very excited. I have a chair in here where I can read. I was reading my book this morning, The Daily Stoic. Excited to be in this office. I love being home. Love being home. And my back. Oh gosh, got an itch. Speaking of itching, have to take fur baby Otis to the vet today. Don't tell him I said that. He's doing the boot scooting boogie, and so hopefully we can get some medication and feels better. I hate when animals are hurting and they can't tell you. They can't say, "Hey, Dad, I'm hurting." You have to observe them. Anywho, wow. And he was mad. I think he was mad at me yesterday. I took him to the dog park, and it was hot out. I bring water, plenty of water for not only him, for other dogs too. Love going to the dog park, getting my laps in, and I know he can only last maybe a half hour. But what he'll do is he'll go hide. Well, not really hide. He'll go lay in the shade. He does hide. Right now they haven't cut the grass there. And so he's like a lion in the Serengeti when he sees other dogs. Because we think he has Australian Shepherd in him, or some type of herding dog, and so he just lays there and then gets in that herding laying position and then just darts out like he just got shot out of a cannon. I mean, he's so cute. Anywho, he was mad at me because I think it was a little too hot, but he survived. And you're doing good, right? I mentioned that? You're doing good? All right. Good. This episode, I'm replaying this episode. This is, they're all my favorites. It's like saying to your kids, you're my favorite. No, you're my favorite. But Mark Williams, he came on the podcast last year. It was on episode 163. And we talked mental health from a guy who has met the royal family, Mark Williams. Mark Williams is a keynote speaker. He's an author and international campaigner. Part of the reason why I want to replay this is because he founded International Father's Mental Health Day, which is always June 21st, the day after Father's Day. And he also has the hashtag #HowAreYouDad. Hashtag #HowAreYouDad. But I feel this is very apropos to share this episode again because we're getting close to Father's Day. And we've had John Francis, who is the creator of Father's Eve, which is the day before Father's Day. And now we're going to bookend it with the day following Father's Day. Again, International Father's Mental Health Day. I am very excited to share this episode again because Mark and I had a great conversation. I mean, I remember it vividly. And so one of the things I'm trying to help with is if you listen to the podcast, I've started a series called Mental Health Monday. And this is where I want to spotlight that, especially you guys, come on, let's step it up. Let's not be afraid to ask for help. And I'm going to call out a dear friend of mine who's also been on this podcast, my good friend Zach. And he was going through some struggles, and we had a conversation, and he admitted he didn't ask for help. And so I really want to help you, not only you men, you dads, but the ladies out there. If you recognize your significant other, your boyfriend, a friend who might be having a little bit of struggle, open up to them, okay? Open up to them. Heck, send them over here to the podcast, Blending the Family. I might have a guest or hopefully maybe kind of sort of something I've said has resonated with somebody. And so that's why I really want to help and promote self-awareness as far as coming to grips with mental health. And I am no stranger to mental health. I mean, I was in therapy. I haven't been to a therapist in years, but I enjoyed my time in therapy because I feel it's a necessity. I really do. I feel it's a necessity in life. So, with that being said, Mark Williams, find him on. You can find him on LinkedIn. The show notes will have his information, but he is just doing some great work in the UK, and my hope is one day he'll come over to this side of the pond, and I would love to have him here in the home office with the new bookcases. Well, they probably won't be new anymore, but they'll be new to him because he had never seen them, unless he had seen the Instagram pictures or video. I did video too, I believe. Anywho, again, Mark Williams, keynote speaker, author, international campaigner, founded International Father's Mental Health Day. Whew. And yes, he's met the royal family. And I think right now, talk about mental health, there's I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to say anything else. Okay. All right, I'm trying to think. I think that's pretty much it. Please go to mydadsadvicebook.com. Please, pretty please, with sugar on top, and purchase several copies. Listen, I put this podcast to you. You don't have to pay for it. I gotta shell it out. I gotta pay for the back end stuff, not you. I'm here for you, but come on, help a brother out here. Purchase several copies of the book. Again, just go to mydadsadvicebook.com, mydadsadvicebook.com. Please enjoy this replay with Mark Williams. I really think you're going to get a kick out of it as well. And as parents, I don't know if you believe this or not, but if you are successful, so let's just say before we end the show, and yes, I'm getting to the Terry Crews quote for those that have played along. If one parent is successful, the other parent is successful because you work as a team. Just like marriage, you work as a team. It's not 50-50. I'm telling you right now, it's not 50-50. It's 100%, 100%. Not 99 and 100%, 100%. Okay? With me so far? Co-parents. If the co-parenting is successful, guess who's successful? Your children are successful. Okay? So your success is going to be my success, and vice versa. Okay? So thank you. So here we go. I already said it, but if you're listening for the first time, I end the show with this quote by Terry Crews that I heard and saw in an interview he did with Tim Ferriss. And Terry Crews said, "Your success is my success." Mark Williams, everybody, enjoy this episode. Explain something to me. International Father's Mental Health Day was June 22nd, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, just it's last week it was just mad. It was. I just replying all emails this week now, so it's calmed down a bit today. So which is great. But yeah, leading up to it was busy, and then obviously yeah, it's been we got a good response, like, but obviously we mental health awareness is every day, but yeah, it's been good.
Is it always the day after Father's Day?
Always a day after Father's Day, yeah. Always a day after. The reason behind it, sometimes we get a lot of like good press, and also that the reason behind it, like some fathers are happy on the Sunday, but unfortunately, that Monday they need some support. So it's about adding research, support resources for dad, and educating mums as well, really, so the dads can suffer as well.
Tell me more about educating moms, because I always have felt, Mark, that that's important too, to have conversations with both male and female when it comes to fatherhood issues.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. Because mums are more likely to see the behaviour change if dad is anxious or depressed. But unfortunately, with men, especially around this time, because men suppress those feelings, and it can look different. So if dad is struggling with his mental health, he may not be able to have a motivation with his child. It could be the fact he's avoiding situations. Dads struggle to bond with their babies as well as mums. So it could be loads of factors. But if you educate mum as well, then it could possibly save relationships as well, because unfortunately, especially in the work I've done, the amount of relationships sadly end because of lack of communication amongst each other. If one of them are depressed, it can have an impact on everyone, including that child's development as well.
Well, a couple of things as you're talking, Mark. Um, Talking about how we fathers like to hold everything in. Recently on this podcast, a good friend of mine, I don't know if you guys are related, but my friend's name is Chris Williams. I don't know.
Okay.
I think between you, Mark, and Chris, you are two smart guys with the same last name. So I think there's a pattern there.
That's how we thank you.
But he and I were talking because he started just a few weeks ago of just some of us guys just getting together. As you're well aware of what's going on here in the United States with the killing of George Floyd and the riots and the protesting that became worldwide. And so my friend Chris, who's as he likes to call it, he's a brown guy. And I didn't, number one, I was asking him, how can I help him? But there were some things going on here in the home front where recently, Mark, we got a puppy. Um, I'm a huge dog fan, love dogs. But part of the problem, Mark, was I'm still trying to do my day job. I'm trying to take care of a puppy. I'm trying to, continuing building this podcast. So a lot of things were happening me mentally. And I'm always a proponent, Mark, on this podcast of guys, you've got to share. You've got to let your thoughts, your feelings be known. And I wasn't taking my own advice, Mark. And so it was really funny when I had my friend Chris on there, and I said the first thing to him was, after you and I talked, after hanging out with the guys, I came home and I just let the floodgates open with my wife, where it was something that needed to happen, but it needed to be happen sooner. So how can we help other men, Mark? How can we say to guys, you've got to let it out? How can we help them, Mark?
Yeah, it's like it's a conversation at the end of the day. And I think especially with mental health, because in the past, for generations, there's been a stigma, for years, and lack of education around that as well. And as we're men, we been told to man up, or men don't cry, all that sort of. It's
Right.
been inbred in us for generations. But when you suppress those feelings, it has to come out in some way. And that's why anxiety and depression, it leads to substance abuse, in alcohol, drugs, because these are the negative coping skills that some men use, including myself, for years, until I realized that there's good mental health and there's poor mental health. And we all got mental health, like physical health, but it can actually impact on your physical health if you don't look after your mental health. So to open a conversation, really, to get rid of the stigma, is explain that, yeah, we all got mental health, but sometimes it's looking after ourselves with good mental health. But unfortunately, why there's 600,000 male suicides around the world every year. That's by the World Health Organization. This is why it's such an important topic to talk about.
Tell me more about bad mental health.
Yeah, we all got like stresses, it's part of life, but it's good stress, and also, severe point where that stress can actually lead to anxiety. And then that anxiety can lead to depression, and that depression can lead to, the killing of men. In the UK, is the biggest killer in men under 50 is suicide, So like I mentioned, 600,000 male suicides. But because the stigma, we know, is far higher, because a lot of men will not be recorded as a suicide, because they will drink themselves to death, or they will have an accident, or they'll do something so that stigma won't affect their families. So this is a global concern. But bad mental health can be from various reasons, from childhood trauma to, like myself, witnessing a traumatic birth in a labor ward, thinking my wife and baby is going to die. It could be a build-up of various things, like on a timeline of trauma, if that makes sense, and eventually, like a lot of things, it can actually catch up with you when that one small thing, like unable to pay the bill that day, could release all the past episodes of things we have never dealt with. So it's a concern that early prevention can actually has better outcomes for your family, your child's development, and yourself. So looking after yourself physically, we know about, but mentally, we should be spending our time doing positive coping skills like relaxation, CBT, mindfulness, meditation, whatever works for you, because that's the thing with mental health. What works for me may not work for you, and it's finding out those positive coping skills.
I'm amazed, Mark, at all the wonderful things you've done. I mean, including meeting the royal family. To our listeners, Mark, take us to the journey. How did you become such a go-getter when it comes to, especially the postpartum aspect of trying to help fathers out there? Tell the listeners a bit of your story, Mark.
Yeah, so I had an undiagnosed disorder. I didn't know at the time until I was 40, called ADHD. So unfortunately in the UK, it was never picked up, and dyslexia. So I had a lot of low self-esteem, unfortunately, before I became a parent. But I think when my life really changed, I was 37 years of age, and I was happily married, still happily married, and never had an argument ever in our relationship, which I won, to be honest with you. But on a serious note, my wife's fantastic, and financially we were great. You know, I was in a totally different job then. My wife was in a good job, and so money was fine. You know, company car, all the nice stuff. But it wasn't until 22 hours labour when the doctors came rushing in and they said, "Mr. Williams, your wife needs emergency C-section." It was the first time I actually had a panic attack because I never thought, I didn't know what was going on. I thought I was going to lose my wife. I thought I was going to lose my baby. And then when I went to the theatre, what I witnessed, what we know now is PTSD. So people say, what's PTSD? Well, PTSD is an anxiety disorder, either witnessing or experiencing a life-threatening event. It's an anxiety disorder. So we know it's post-traumatic stress disorder, but that's what it is. It's an anxiety disorder. So when Michelle went on to have severe post-depression, where we believe now we've more from the trauma of the birth, you know, I had to give up work for 6 months, no money coming in, mortgage to pay. I was self-employed. I didn't initially bond my son initially. I was worried my wife because she was in crisis team. Then there was the stigma. I couldn't tell my friends, couldn't tell my family, couldn't tell my wife because I didn't want to impact on her mental health. So I was starting to get depressed now as well myself then. And around about the 3 to 4 month mark, I was starting to get suicidal thoughts as well. Never made a plan to take my life because it's different to having thoughts and to a plan. But
Correct.
certainly I was very unwell at that time. But in that first year of fatherhood, I felt totally isolated, the most loneliest time in my life. And I got a lot of friends, but I couldn't really connect with people because I would start avoiding situations, you know, feel paranoid. And then anger was coming out, punching a sofa, busting my hand, you know, starting fights with bouncers when I did manage to get out, because when somebody's hitting, it was like another form of self-harm. So all these things going on in a short space of time until eventually 4 or 5 years later, I had a breakdown, total breakdown. And that was the thing most toughest time because, pardon me, I think that was the most toughest time because at that time I lost my grandfather to dementia, and then my mother was diagnosed with cancer. And because I thought I was going to lose my mother, everything I hadn't dealt with in my life from childhood, the trauma, witnessing my wife, and everything else basically came to head really. And I was physically fit during that time as well. I was doing a lot of kickboxing, physically fit, but mentally it was impacting my physical health. And I was put in community mental health services and never diagnosed with any sort of PTSD or PND, as they say, because I was never screened during that time. But I was diagnosed with ADHD.
Wow. So what was that diagnosis though, finding out your ADHD? I mean,
Yeah,
that somewhat marked maybe an eye opening there, that there is light at the end of the tunnel.
absolutely. I think, you know, I suffered in silence for years, and I was really unwell in 2010 to a point where I was getting those thoughts again. But I honestly think my son, you know, I had to be there here for my son. And I think that, you know, I was put on medication and counseling, and that journey opened me up to, after speaking to a guy in a gym, really. But going back to your question on ADHD, I think people say it's just a label sometimes, and it's only a label if you don't do nothing with it. It was like an invisible enemy. Once I knew what I was up against, I knew I could battle it. Because with ADHD on its own, it has interlinks with depression, anxiety, OCD, and other forms of like low self-esteem. So impulsiveness, loads of factors in that on its own, and that's before you become a parent, you know, and the lack of sleep, of course, is having an impact.
Right.
But I think it was my recovery really changed my purpose in life when I spoke to a guy in the gym, and I asked him, can I borrow the weights? And he said, yeah. I got to go to NHS Prams, which is a hospital. And I said, oh, I'm working in a hospital, but I'm off at the moment in Cardiff. And he said, oh, okay. And we had a conversation. And then side by side, I told him more things in 5 minutes than he told me, vice versa. And we had a conversation, and we started talking about our mental health and how it impacted us having a baby and why he was having postnatal depression. And that was the real journey then, when it started me 10 years ago now nearly, to the way I want to change policies and get all parents supported for their mental health.
Well, again, Mark, you've done some incredible work, and it just shows that the kindness of strangers. So in that situation where you're just asking another guy, hey, can I borrow these weights? And it turns out that it was one of those moments that was meant to be, that in my view, that somebody was looking out for Mark going, hey, ask that guy for some weights.
Absolutely. It was incredible. It was pardon me, sorry, Tommy. When I came out that room, I just felt so lighter. And then I met up with Brian again, and I went on to set up a group called Fathers Reaching Out, and it was only to support fathers with their partners with postnatal depression. But what I found out, that sometimes there's only dad who was struggling, and that was impacting on mum's mental health. And also it had an impact on our child's development in many cases, not all cases, but also the amount of relationships were breaking up. And, it was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. So it went from there, really, a support group. And it's a big myth that men don't talk. If you get men together, or somebody who got some empathy and understanding about the situation, men will talk, definitely talk.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and and that's true. And again, with my friend Chris, just saying, hey, let's get out, let's go, talk. And it didn't have to really be something serious. It was just, that first time, it was just 6 of us sitting in a pub here, and it was nice. It was very freeing, to be honest, Mark, because even though I didn't know those guys, they didn't know me. It was really a great opportunity for guys to just sit around and go, this is a safe zone. This is a safe environment. We're going to just be guys. Let's just talk. And it turned out a couple of the guys really needed it. I know I needed it. But it goes back to the early conversation we were having here, Mark, and that is, we men are still living in that mindset that we have to be the tough guy. We can't cry. We can't tell our spouses that we're hurting, mentally. It's still a sad time that, here we are in, 2020. You've been doing work for 10 years, and we're still trying to get men to open up.
Absolutely. It is. It's especially when in the UK, we've obviously the royal family been involved with mental health services, and a lot of like boxers have shared their stories. So, good thing about having boxers, because, like Frank Bruno, there's Tyson Fury,
Yeah.
you got Ricky Hatton and Joe Kazaki, probably the 4 greatest boxers in Britain, and they've all suffered with their mental health. So when I say to men, this man up, it's about you more be a man if you get the help and support for yourself and not worry what other people think. And, you'll have better outcomes for your family, because I think that's what I didn't open up so much, because I was worried what people thought of me. I used to worry about, if I'd get another job. And I was working in mental health at this time, but I still didn't get the help at that time, because I thought if I go to the GP, it'll be on my records. But I think the next generation is coming through as well. I think it'll help them because the work we're doing now is like we're the pioneers, and then my son's more likely to open up because my wife works in mental health as well now as well. So he's more likely to open up if he's struggling with his mental health. And it's about having a conversation. That's what it is. Have a conversation.
Oh, that is so key. That, I mean, it's so basic, but it's so powerful just having a conversation. And, my biggest concern for my son is that because I've had my own battles of depression for as far as I can remember, is I've had those open conversations with them saying, if you're struggling, let's talk. Don't be afraid to, talk, not just to, your dad, talk to your mom, talk to, friends. And uh, with the pandemic that's been going on, Mark, my son, he doesn't do well. He's a very social type kid. Well, I shouldn't say kid. He's 17. He's still a kid in my eyes. But because he had to do his schooling from home,
Yeah.
virtual, that's not his wheelhouse. He likes being in school. He likes being amongst his friends, and he likes being taught in person. And so I received an email from his mom one day and said, I'm letting him have a mental day. And I'm like, what? And I thought it was so cool that she put it that way because he was struggling. He was not only was school starting to impact him because his grades started to slowly slip. He's a junior. He's very prideful when it comes to grades. I wouldn't say he's a consistent A student, Mark, but he still had the integrity to say, I know my grades are important because I want to go to college. But the other thing that really he was struggling with, Mark, was finding a summer job because as we all know, everything is pretty much shut down.
Yeah.
And so it was very refreshing for my son to admit that I'm struggling. I need a day. And I think, just like you were saying, Mark, as parents, as aunts, uncles, mentors, we need to have that open dialogue with kids to say it's okay. I mean, especially as the young boys, that it's okay to cry. It's okay to admit you're hurt. Just let it
Definitely.
out.
Absolutely. And I can relate to that with exactly what you just said, Tommy, because my son is nearly 16 now as well, and he likes to play football, which is soccer in the UK, in America. So, he's very sociable, like school. So yeah, it's it's a hard one, especially with this. We're still in lockdown at the moment in Wales. We're only 5 miles away we can go, so we're different to England, and yeah, it's been a big change in the way we live as we know. But I'll be honest, I've coped personally a little bit better than most people with lockdown because I'm so used to getting up in the morning, busy running, going up to England, when I'm mostly like, now doing talks and Zooms and chats. So, and I've looked up my mental health by doing like walking, getting back to nature, and some of the basic stuff, So, but I can totally relate to what you just said with your son because that's exactly like my son is what he's struggled with, and he's looking forward to being out with his friends again.
With the postpartum, how did that um, how did you become a warrior for the postpartum?
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
just really went mad in 2012, really. So the support was up and running, and I shared my story online on a newspaper, I should say, local newspaper, and then a national newspaper took hold of it, and then they wanted me to go on TV, radio, And then, luckily for me, I met Dr. Jane Hanley going back 9 years ago now, nearly. And Jane educated me, trained me up in perinatal mental health. And it just went from there then. And then I knew I was right because the mums were actually telling me, look, I'm fine. There's nothing wrong with me, Mark. Can I have a chat with my husband because he's struggling since the baby's been born or during a pregnancy? And I find out loads of reasons I was finding out. You know, a lot of dads have got bipolar, schizophrenia, ASD, ADHD, you know, loads of different undiagnosed disorders before they became parents, and then the lack of sleep. It could be that transition to parenthood. It could have been, dads struggle to bond with the babies, low self-esteem, thinking, good enough. So dads, like mums, what mums worry about, of course, dads got their own concerns, financial support, money worries, isolation. Over the years I've spoken to, gosh, it got to be at least 2,000 parents, at least, through Zoom chats, conferences, doing support groups. So it was a case of changing policies and really trying to change policy. So not just for this generation, but when my son, he may be a dad one day, and friends I know, they may be dads. So it's really about changing the policies to make sure all parents are supported for their mental health. And my work's never been about taking the attention away from mum, never. I'm saying, look, if you don't look after dad as well, it can actually affect mum as well and the relationship if dad is struggling. So, we want all parents to be the best they can be. There's no such thing as a perfect parent, but
it's so true.
I'm still learning now, but it's making sure that all parents have the right to be the best they can be, and that's making sure they get the support for their mental health. So it's been about supporting all parents. But 10 years ago, nobody was really shouting about dads, so that's why I started doing the work I'm doing now.
Tell us more about Dr. Jane Hanley.
Yeah, so Dr. Jane Hanley, she's been in the field for 33 years now, and she's written a book on the subject. And I was never worked with Jane, and then Dr. Daniel Singley, actually from California. So with Daniel, we set up International Father's Mental Health Day. So I had the idea then obviously in 2016, but Daniel made it a more international day because of where he's from. And so I've been lucky enough to work with a lot of doctors, professors, and which has been really great because it's, my background. Unfortunately, I left school at 15, no qualifications, and so working with the academics have, give me an insight, and I've helping them as well, because I think my knowledge have come from working with the parents as well and looking at things differently as well. So yeah, it's been great working with another gentleman called Dr. Andy Mayers. He's done some great work in the UK. So yeah, it's been brilliant. And I just think that the stigma, you can imagine a father with postpartum, depression, it's harder for a man to come out with depression, but let alone, how is he depressed, But you look at the research, there's hormonal changes in fathers as well. Testosterone lowers during this time, but big factors mostly are loads of factors, like I mentioned just now, a lot of low self-esteem, not good enough, transition to parenthood, social media, loads of factors. So yeah.
I remember when it talked about low self-esteem, when I was married the first time, Mark, and my former wife and I were talking about daycare after our son was going to be born. I said, well, I would like to stay home with him. And she looked at me like I had a third eye. She's like, you're an only child. You never babysat. You've never changed a diaper in your life. Yeah, so on the job training, that's what it's all about. I mean, like you said, Mark, there's no perfect parent. So she said, well, if it doesn't work out, then I'll just come home and I'll take a leave of absence. I'm like, thanks for setting me up for failure right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as I said, 17 years later, I think I did okay.
It's funny, Tommy, because I had that conversation yesterday with a midwife, and we were talking with this to a group of parents. And it's right, sometimes, mum might say something that, I mean, not intentionally, sometimes they're saying, like, oh, you're not doing it the right way, or you do this. And then Dan will start to move away from the situation and think, well, okay. So it's about encouraging all parents, really, just say, look, it's no manual to be a parent. We're learning on the job, which is certainly what I've done, and certainly like learning today.
Yeah.
My same as you, Tommy. Your boys go for adolescence now. So that's another area where it can be hard sometimes.
Well, it's funny because, as I look back on those days, Mark, it it was probably the best work I've ever done is being a stay-at-home dad. And uh, I mean, it was so wonderful. It was so much um, great opportunity to bond. The
Yeah,
hardest part, Mark, was when it was time for him to start socializing with other kids and taking him to daycare. I'm like, oh, guess I'm not needed anymore.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's funny you should say that, because I felt like that last year with my son, because now he wants to be out with his friends more. So yeah, I totally understand that as well. And it's been the best journey of my life, being a father as well. Okay, the first year was tough, and I didn't initially bond with my son, like I mentioned, but that bond and attachment grew because I was home for 6 months. So that 6 months I was home every day when my wife was in bed some days, and well, I had that time with my son to really make a bond and attachment. And we got a fantastic relationship. And if it wasn't for him now, I wouldn't be doing the work I'm doing now. So yeah, it's great. Fatherhood is the best thing.
It is. It really is. And it, it's just fun to watch them grow into themselves. You're there when they're born, and they're taking those steps and then going off a bottle and eating real food, and next thing you know, they're going to be graduating school, and you'll be like, where did the time go?
Yeah.
So one of the things I was just thinking about when you were talking about um, international father international father mental health is one of my past guests. His name is John Francis, and he started what's called Father's Eve. And what Father's Eve, Mark, it's the day before Father's Day, and it's as John says, it's when you are getting together with your buddies on Father's Eve, but Father's Day is time spent with the family. And I'm sitting here going, oh my gosh, this is just a perfect weekend for men. And I feel that this is an opportunity to really enhance fatherhood, because we can help promote Father's Eve. Then the next day is Father's Day, and then the next day is International Father's Mental Health.
Absolutely.
What a
That'd be
great
amazing.
what a great time to really be a father when we have people such as yourself. And like I said, John Francis with Father's Eve. It
I
really does seem that fatherhood is starting, I want to say starting, um, to really become a little bit more serious. And what I mean by that, Mark, is it just, you were talking about social media. Well, we have dad jokes. We have, you know, characters on television that really don't showcase positive fatherhood. However, with work like yourself and again, John Francis, I'm starting to really see a turn of fatherhood really being put in a positive spotlight.
Definitely. I think it's coming along, especially since I've started massively. There's more, dance groups online, and more fathers, as we know, want to be in a child's life more than ever. Mum is in work now. Mum is, especially in the UK in Parliament, and dad is home. It's very common for dads to stay at home now in the UK, especially, and single dads. So we've got to be celebrating fatherhood as well. What fathers actually give to the child, especially when they're grown up as well, make it more secure. And so yeah, definitely, it's exciting. I think we've seen a massive shift in parenthood, and in maternity services in UK. They change in the way now. They start to think family now as well. So whereas before it was always mum and baby, and they really start to think families now. And then same gender parents as well. Same sex couples. I mean, everything's changed now over the last 20 years. So it's exciting to say, and I'm definitely going to look up John Francis, Tommy, thanks to you, because I think that's the way forward. If we can celebrate fatherhood, and educate people in school, but the role of the father as well, the old traditional dad and the modern day dad, and how that can overlap. So yeah, it's about celebrating fatherhood and be proud.
Well, a gentleman named Matt Schneider, and Matt Schneider started New York City dads groups, and that grew to um, city dads groups throughout the United States, where dads get together and they go and do events with their kids. And that was, it's really funny, Mark. You know, as as I try to be as involved in fatherhood, then you hear about other dads doing wonderful things, and I'm like, I haven't heard of that. Let's talk. And again, it just there just seems to be a turning of the tide. However, and I mean this, however, in a good way, is a lot of things that you're saying, Mark, I've heard echoed from other guys, and that is bringing along the moms, bringing along women to help signify that fathers are needed in kids' lives. And even in the world of divorce, you have to have co-parenting. You really need to have both parents involved. We need to have making sure that there is the opportunity for the dads to be involved with um, the kids' lives. And
Absolutely.
I commend you because I see one of the things, you're the ambassador for Mothers Charity. What is that about, Mark?
Yeah, so Mothers for Mothers charity has been going 39 years in Bristol, in England. And they were one of the first charities to support mums with postnatal depression or postpartum depression. So they've seen the impact it has when looking after dad has, for their mental health, because a lot of dads will have depression looking after their partners with postnatal depression, up to 50%, So if you support dad as well, obviously dad is going to look after mum even better. And it was just an honor, because my work hasn't been just about fathers. It's about saying, look, you support all parents, and it has far better outcomes for the whole family and the child's development. So yeah, it's nice because people realize my work is mostly for fathers, but I actually do a lot of work for mums as well, and educate mums that dads could be struggling as well with their mental health. So yeah, it was an honor to be an ambassador. And I think the title just says it on the tin, really. So when people say, "Oh, you campaign for dad's rights and all those different things," which is so important, but I say, look, by supporting and making sure dad is there in a child's life, just has far better outcomes, and that's for the whole family. So yeah, I think it was the right charity to be an ambassador for.
Um, I happened to find this article from the Daily Mail, and it was about a father who had to pay 38,000 pounds to his ex in child maintenance, and he's forced to keep paying, even though finding out that the daughter isn't his after 14 years. Can you so here in the United States we struggle with our family court system because I've had many uh, family attorneys on this podcast, and they will echo it as well that um, there needs to be a disruption when it comes to family courts.
Mm,
So, can
definitely.
do you see that um, in Wales and in England where it's not really uh, a system of fairness when it comes to fatherhood?
It's changing slightly, not far enough. I think parental alienation is a huge topic to talk about. That's another subject in itself is important
Right.
because, but coming from the work I've done, a lot of these fathers have been struggling and present differently. I give an example. There was one dad who, he wouldn't change a nappy, and he had these intrusive thoughts like mums. He was going to do something with the baby. And if he was supported properly and had the right help, then he wouldn't have presented the way he did, and down the pub or trying to cope with all these things. And then a divorce comes along, and then a lot of parents saying, "Oh, he's not good enough to be a dad." No, he wasn't good enough at that time because he was struggling. He couldn't cope with things. But he wants to be in his child's life now, and or before. So anyone who's willing to fight the courts, that itself is he wants to be part of a child's life. And I think parental alienation is a huge, huge topic that needs to be highlighted because, at the end of the day, it's all parents should have the right to be support the child. And in the UK, I know my work's crossed over with a lot of organisations like Fathers for Justice, Matt O'Connor. He started that going back in, I think it was in 2004, something like that it was. And I've seen how they've been campaigning to make sure, fathers, as well as mums, obviously works two ways sometimes, as well. But yeah, the courts it's a system that has been broken in itself. There's a good documentary I would watch with Bob Geldof and how he was fighting the family courts. And it's huge, it's just a waste of time of court cases and all that time, it's a bit of common sense really, that we should be thinking fathers, mothers, all parents matter. So yes, it's a big thing in the UK. And there's a lot of suicides amongst fathers who unfortunately can't see their children as well. And they've carried on. I got a friend of mine who haven't seen his child for over 12 years. And he's fought the case. He's fought and fought and fought. So, and it affects not just the fathers, it actually affects the grandparents as well.
How so?
This doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense.
How so with the grandparents?
In this case, the grandparents have never seen that child either.
Oh.
So never seen the child either. So, the only grandchild they've had, and they've never had the opportunity to be a grandparent. So they've been robbed of that because whatever that father may have done, and if he, in some cases, maybe safeguardings and things, but the grandparents have never, never been at fault, and they've been actually, lost in that system, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a great point, Mark. Didn't think about, yeah, if dad hasn't seen the child, then it's the trickle down theory. Obviously, the grandparents either, and they, you know, grandparents want to be grandparents.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. I'm very lucky. My father, he's a fantastic grandparent. My son, and you know, it's seeing his joy in his face when he sees my son. You know, unfortunately, some grandparents don't get that, and it's pretty sad when you think of that as well. And I just think that it has to come everything, especially in the UK. I'm seeing different changes. You know, it is changing, but it needs to change more quicker.
I have to ask, Mark, so what does your son think of all these things that you do?
Yeah, yeah. I've taken him a couple of events, you know, on TV or radio, and um, I think I was more concerned when I first started talking about it because how it impacted him in school. And I think because I'm a youth worker, I'm a football coach up till 2 weeks ago. I think a lot of people see me in a different light and know me as a happy-go-lucky person, always smiling, but they didn't realize I was suffered from depression. So my son's never had any sort of backlash or anyone criticize me and he's actually wants to go into the field himself or one, you know, like be a nurse or something along that line. So yeah, I think it's certainly see my wife as well working in mental health now as well, trying, and my wife does save, she's saved a couple of people's lives herself in her own work. Is made it more, give him more a different outlook. But he's certainly, yeah, he's always proud, and I'm proud of him, very proud of him, how he's handled it as well, and because obviously it couldn't have been easy for him, you know what I mean, especially. So he's thriving, he's doing well in school, very sociable, he's doing wonders, like, so yeah, he's really growing. He's getting more independent now as well.
Sometimes I don't know if that's good or bad.
I know, yeah, I think I just but since lockdown, trying to get him out of bed because he haven't got that structure in place has been hard as well. So yeah.
Yeah, a good friend of mine, he runs it's more than a daycare center. I mean, these kids aren't sitting around. He's taking them. So I live in Colorado, and so he'll take the kids up to the mountains. He's got a slew of bicycles, so they're constantly doing something physical. But his son has been doing online school for about 3 years. And one of the biggest things I asked him, because again, you know, the way the schooling has changed, you know, worldwide, was how can parents help our kids? And he said, what you just said, Mark, and that was structure. They need a schedule. He said that one of the biggest things, he makes sure that part of the structure, part of the schedule is not just lunch, but getting his son, Gabe, outside doing something, not just sitting in front of a computer, you know, 6, 7, 8 hours. We really need to break it down. And so you aren't just sitting in front of a computer all day. You have to be active. You need to, you know, keep moving, because it will affect physically, but also affect you mentally as well. Just being a drone sitting in front of a laptop.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. No, you're right, and I think that once you got a structure in place, and you know, and it helps. It's helped me certainly get up, you know, and because especially in lockdown, it was, yeah, my purpose had changed. You know, I'm so used to doing talks and training and all that went. I'm similar with my son. You know, he used to doing the football and coach, being out with his friends in a structured way. But he's certainly definitely. I think everyone should have structure. You're absolutely right, and it could be simple, as simple as, you know, but go for a walk in the morning. get in touch with nature, and then clears your mind and puts you up, good in good stead for the rest of the day, really. So yeah, definitely structure is really good. Definitely helps your mental health.
One of the things that I've heard you use the word several times since we've talked this morning, Mark, is purpose. When did you realize, what was there an aha moment when you realized that postpartum or men's mental health, when did you have that moment of clarity that you found your purpose? Is
I
there a
think,
story?
yeah, I think it has to be during that 8 weeks when I was really unwell. I think that gave me a purpose, and that helped with my mental health massively. So after I had that breakdown, and I met the gentleman in the gym, and he told me, and then I started talking to other fathers, and then that was my purpose. I knew I had. It was like I was drawn to it. Then I started looking into it and finding out all the different research, and all of a sudden it took my mind off other struggles I had then. So it gave me some sort of purpose and outlook, and then that resolved in writing a book, writing 2 books, published 2 books, and then you started writing journals, you go on TV, radio, and then doing podcasts with yourself, Tommy, as well. So like you said, it changed my way of living as well. So okay, financially it wasn't. I probably earned more money 20 years ago, but I think it made me realize, okay, by supporting and helping people, that's a currency in itself. When you've actually saved somebody's life, is a massive reward for yourself. So even though I've been awarded a couple of awards over the years as well, is nothing gives me greater pleasure knowing that I've kept families together and benefited the child as well and the baby. So yeah, so it gives you a different purpose, massively different purpose. And I think whether I'm going to be in this for another probably 5 years at least, I think I've got an idea what I want to do next, and that's coach and mentor other people who've gone through negative time in their lives, and then turn it out into a positive and do what I've done. So that's definitely my next chapter, to actually do more coaching, mentoring, motivation, speaking, to say, look, this might be a hard time for you now, but trust me, you can turn this into a positive, and something good has to come out of something bad.
The mentoring, that is so big because especially there's a lot of articles out there on Entrepreneur Magazine, Fortune Magazine, Inc. Magazine, from the business standpoint of having, mentors. However, I commend you for bringing that up too, Mark, because I think again, what your purpose is to help shed that light that we dads can mentor each other, that we can have that open conversation, that open dialogue, and again, to let them know that you're not here doing it alone. You're in a safe environment. Let's work together to get you to a different way or a different aspect, to see more positivity in your life. And I love, mentors come and go in your lives in different seasons, as I've heard Tony Robbins and Dr. John Maxwell talk about um, different seasons. So mentorship is so huge, and again, in my view, and I think in your view too, Mark, especially when it comes to fatherhood and men's mental health.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. It's funny you should say that, yeah, because I'm before I got into mental health, I was in sales, believe it or not. So I learned a lot of communication skills from sales, and then those were easy transferable when I got into mental health over 10 years ago. But but certainly people like Tony Robbins and how we can change your mindset. And I love all that, positive psychology. I love it, and I think that's what I mean. But even though I knew all those skills, when I went for my depression, I know it was like I couldn't even get out of bed. I mean, I couldn't physically get out of bed. It was like climbing a mountain. So, like I mentioned, having a conversation is, unless you're, being in those situations or shoes, you can't really judge what somebody going through depression has really been. So, best thing would be is just be kind to them, and don't add to the stigma, and don't add to the educate yourself about it as well. So yeah, definitely, I'm really a big advocate for positive thinking. But like you said, mentally, I even though I knew all them was skills and what I was in a totally different place, But certainly that hasn't happened to me for 10 years now. And every day I look after my mental health. Every day I do. I invest in my mental health, like my physical health. So, and what I will say to people out there is just have a conversation. Don't suffer in silence. Speak to somebody. If they don't listen, speak to somebody else, because the quicker the help, the quicker recovery. And like you said, it can happen to anyone. Anyone can suffer.
Do you have like a daily routine to help with your mental health, like journaling or meditation?
Yeah, walking is a big one for me, because I'm up in the mountains. I'm in the South Wales valleys, so the valleys is all like green mountains around us. We haven't got much apart from, obviously, the city is about 25 miles away. So we've got the mountains. So being in touch with nature. Since lockdown, especially, I've been more drawn into it, and that's really helped as well. But like CBT. So, mindfulness, meditation. I'm looking into meditation more as well, because I know it works for me personally. And so, yeah, it's just reading positive books, even like working in mental health and talking to people with depression. Obviously, you need to weigh it up with something positive as well. So, I always look at like YouTube positive quotes and stuff. I love all that stuff. And then, like you said, it's continuing my work, really. I think having a structure, so I don't get too overwhelmed when I get too many phone calls or emails come through. I make sure I balance it out as well. So, and make sure I spend time with the family. And we do basic stuff like play chess, cards. So yeah, I think it's finding out what works for you, really. But certainly, I find out what triggers me as well, what makes my mental health deteriorate. And also, it's a good idea to have like a mood diary to tell you what triggers you off, or when the moods change, or how you're feeling. So a lot of people write things down so that they can process it better than being stuck in their heads, So yeah, I've learned a lot of coping skills, like even like overthinking, or mind reading other people, thinking that they don't like you, or something like that could trigger off things. So yeah, it's all learning different skill sets, which hasn't been hard. But what I will say is, it's an ongoing process. It's like any recovery; you have to keep going at it. You can't, if you do have a day off, make sure you get on it the next day. Make sure you look after your mental health by doing some sort of mindfulness or meditation.
Yeah, especially like you're saying, if you not necessarily take a day off, but if you maybe so for example, with weight loss, and you end up eating bad for one day, don't beat yourself up. Just say, okay, we move on, we move forward.
Exactly. That's what I meant. Yeah, exactly. It's, even when I say bad, miss a day, that's exactly what I was thinking, Tommy. Yeah, it's just keep doing it. If keep doing it every day. It's an ongoing process, isn't it? And still today, I have my ups and downs. Like a lot of people, but nothing like anxiety, depression I had 10 years ago, nowhere near. So yeah, it's an ongoing learning as well. I learn other things of like people like yourself and other podcasts, and podcasts are really great. I think you can learn as well as do your daily exercise or chores as well.
Mark, I know we've been playing around with the schedule for, I want to say, over a year,
I
maybe
know.
2 years. Yeah, I think it's almost 2 years. I've been begging to come on, and I am so
And I didn't
grateful.
today, Tommy, as well. It's my time difference as well. So I'm
Uh,
just so glad I've done it with you because, like you said, I think you're the only person I've missed a couple of times or something's happened. So I do apologize for it. So I'm glad I've done it with you today, the podcast.
no apology, no apology needed, Mark. I'm just so thrilled that we were able to do this. I mean, as somebody just taking a step from afar and watching all the positive things you do, you really, I don't know if you realize how many people you inspire, including myself, going, oh my gosh. I mean, looking at the information you just sent to me, I mean, you've done so much, and I commend you, Mark. I am so grateful for what you're doing to help promote positive fatherhood. I will make sure I get an email and an introduction for you and John Francis. But I have to ask the last question, Mark. The last question is no pun intended question, Mark. Whoa, I need another cup of coffee. So the last question. So, Mark, what has changed in your life the past 12 months?
I think I've set my own business. I think I've always run my business part time while working in hospitals. But I think the last 12 months I've actually been my own boss, full time. Well, it's been over 12 months now. It's probably been about 17, 18 months. And I think I love what I do. And I think training, I do public speaking. I just love it. I absolutely love it. I get up in the morning. I don't even have to think about getting out of bed. I just get up because I love what I do. So I think that's the biggest thing for the last 12 months, really. And then obviously as a family, it's benefited us as a family, as in I got more time to be at home. And yeah, I think a lot of good things have come out the last 12 months. But last 12 months really is knowing that something I've turned something good into something bad, but also I'm doing something I love. I just love it. I just love I love doing the public speaking. I love doing the talks, training. Yeah, it's fab. And obviously, like you said, it's once you enjoy something you do, it's like you're not working really. So that's why I look at it. So yeah, it's been brilliant. Last 12 months, and like you said, I've got a couple of things coming up this year, which is hopefully going to change policies, not just in the UK but overseas. I got a report that's coming out that for the World Health Organization that doesn't actually recommend anything on fathers, only mothers, maternal. And I want them to make sure they got fathers' mental health on their websites as well and information. So if I can change that over the coming years, maybe that'll be the biggest one, really. The World Health Organization to acknowledge that fathers need support for their mental health too.
Mark Williams, keynote speaker, author, international campaigner, founder of International Fathers Mental Health Day. Hashtag How Are You Dad campaign. Oh my gosh, Mark, you do it all, and a football coach, which I miss playing. Unfortunately, I was probably one of the shortest goalies, so wasn't a good. I mean, I played for many years. Actually, I played over, not too close to you, trying to figure out my geography, but I played over in Bath.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
um,
Yeah.
Birmingham. And then our team went over to Sweden, I think. I can't remember. It's been a long, long time. So then I switched to playing hockey, and I've taken way too many pucks to the head as a goalie. So you'll have to excuse me from time to time.
Oh, it's great, Tommy. I really enjoyed that. Yeah, I really have. Honestly, I think it's just like you said, it's just a normal conversation, and that's what it's all about. Let's just get more men, dads, mums, let's get them all talking.
Words of wisdom before I let you go, Mark, because like I said, this has been 2 years in the making. What would you like to leave the listeners before ending this conversation? What words of wisdom can you share?
Yeah, simple one for me. Don't suffer in silence. Speak to somebody. If you're struggling with your mental health, make sure you speak to somebody and keep trying.